So when I was in elementary school, I had Santa Claus's direct phone number. Okay, so it's more accurate to say my parents had Santa Claus's direct phone number. Basically, what we would do every year is a few weeks before Christmas, we would call Santa Claus, and I would talk to him on the phone, and I would tell him all the things that I wanted for Christmas. And I was really lucky because usually I would get most of the things I asked for. And my brothers, I have two older brothers, they told me that they had also done the same thing. And it was really weird because I would do this every year, and as time progressed, more kids at my school stopped believing in Santa Claus. And that didn't make sense to me because I had his direct phone number. I talked to him at least once a year. And years passed, and it was towards the end of the 90s, and my family had gotten new technology. We had caller ID now. And so when we called Santa Claus, I thought to myself, I can save Christmas. So I wrote down Santa Claus's phone number, paying little attention to the fact he had a 602 Phoenix, Arizona area code. Santa Claus vacations, he's magic, it's fine. And the next day at school, I brought that phone number. And to all of the people that didn't believe in Santa Claus, I'm like, I have a direct line. You know I get good stuff at Christmas. Give him a call. And a couple days later, some of them came back to me. And they're like, we talked to Santa. He had the deep voice. He did the ho, ho, ho and all that. He was a little confused at first. Sounded a little stressed out, but we talked to him, and he talked to our parents, and a couple weeks later, they got most of the things they wanted for Christmas. And the next year, I kind of aged out of it, and we didn't talk to Santa Claus. And years passed, and it was the mid-2000s. I was just about to graduate from high school. And my family friends, Bryce and Marilyn, invited my family over for a dinner party around Christmas time. And Bryce and Marilyn didn't have any kids, but they always hosted these just elaborate, huge Christmas parties and dinner parties. It was always so much fun. And part of the way through the night, Bryce took me aside and he was like, hey, Matt, do you remember talking to Santa Claus as a kid? And I'm like, yeah, it was so much fun. I always loved doing that. I never figured out what that was. And he's like, well, your parents and I were running a scam on you. I was your Santa Claus. And I would do that for you, your brothers, and the folks in our extended friend group. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's so kind of you. Thank you for doing that. Like, it was so wonderful for me. And he's like, yeah, do you remember why you stopped talking to Santa Claus? And I'm like, yeah, I kind of aged out of it. He's like, that's one of the reasons. The other reason is that you gave out Santa Claus's phone number to a bunch of strangers. And I am completely mortified at this point. I had forgotten that I had done this, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. He's like, no, Matt, you don't understand. It actually turned out to be good because Bryce had been a criminal mediator in Phoenix, Arizona. He did capital trials for people that were potentially going to get the death penalty. And he was in a really serious case at that time where they were trying to figure out whether this person was going to go to life in prison or whether or not they were going to get the death penalty. So he was going through these intense negotiations, 8-10 hours a day. And then he would get home to little kids being like, hi, is this Santa Claus? Just a true pendulum swing, you know? And he was like, yeah, initially it was really confusing. I would call them back and I'd have to have these weird conversations with their parents. Like, hey, yeah, my family friend's son gave out my phone number. Your kid thinks I'm Santa Claus. And some of your friends' parents were very creeped out, I will tell you that. But some of them were into it, and I talked to all of these friends, and it was such a delight because the stress that I was going through at that time was minimized by all of the joy that I was able to bring into these people's lives. And what he told me was that I was one of the last kids in the extended friend group, so he was kind of sad at the prospect of not being Santa anymore. And by me giving out his phone number, he was able to extend being Santa Claus for years. He had just gotten off the phone that day, just before the party, as Santa Claus. So I thanked him again for being my Santa Claus, and we had many more great dinner parties. And, I would offer to give you his phone number. But unfortunately, he passed away a couple years ago. And I can't give you his phone number. But if you're in the market for a Santa Claus, talk to me out in the lobby. I'll give you my phone number because I learned from the best. Thank you.